All right, guys, welcome into the latest episode of the Starting 11 podcast. This is our first episode back of the new season. Welcome in. We ended last season talking about the Champions League, the Nations League, the FA Cup, all that stuff, and a lot has happened in the off season in the transfer window to make this season a little bit more exciting than I'd say in past years. First off, of course, we had the champion of last year's Premier League and the champion of the Championship facing off. Manchester City and Burnley. It was the first game last Friday. Manchester won 3-0. By their standards, not the most impressive performance, so to speak, but it's Manchester City, so a 3-0 win. They're the only team that can really make that look unimpressive, I guess you could say. Haaland picking up where he left off, scoring 2 goals. I think the first one was within the first 3 minutes. So, some people were skeptical if he could repeat his performance from last season, but it's starting to look like he's going to repeat it and maybe succeed the numbers he had last season. So good start to the season for them. Grant, I don't know if you had any quick thoughts on that game before we, kind of jumped into the real weekend, big slate of games.
Just to touch on Burnley a little bit, I know the expectations are really high this year just because what they did last year in the championship, the highest scoring team in the championship and best defensive record in the league last year. But this is a new level, and it just shows like the gap from championship level teams to the Premier League, and it was quite the way for Burnley to get a welcome back into the Prem. I mean, City, to be fair, they do have their games where they look just so incredible. They're scoring 7 goals, whatever. But most of the time, it is kind of like how they played against Burnley, where it's kind of slow, hold on to the ball, just make the right passes. And I mean, having Holland up top if you go in. So, yeah, but I was just glad. Didn't matter who played, could have been Luton and I don't know, Sheffield. And I was watching that game because soccer's back, baby. And
Yeah.
I couldn't be more excited.
The one unfortunate thing to take away from that game was Kevin De Bruyne getting hurt, and reports this
Mm.
week starting to seem like he might not play for the rest of 2023, and he might be making his return at the start of the new year. Do you think that can affect Manchester City's championship odds? We haven't, posted it just yet, but we're going to be posting our picks for the season. I'm pretty sure you still had City winning the league despite the injury. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with City, even with that KDB injury. It'll be interesting to see what they do. They throw Foden in that role, but the way City are, I wouldn't be surprised if they're kind of savage with this. And De Bruyne's gone in the winter or the summer. Even if he doesn't want to go, just City kind of forcing him out. So that would be something because he got injured, what, in the first half of the Champions League final?
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Same
Pep, I
injury, I think.
saw, yeah, and I saw a quote from him kind of I don't know how to passive aggressively talking about him being injured all the time. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to force him out and just reload some other big playmaker, but we'll see what happens.
And I just want to move on now to the Saturday set of games because that was kind of like the real stretch of the weekend games, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
All but I guess the four. The real big winners of the weekend, I'd say, are both Newcastle and Brighton, both winning by 4 goals respectively from Newcastle, and then a 3 goal differential win by Brighton. They're sitting at the top of the table because of the goal differential. So far, I think my biggest takeaway from either of the two games is the immediate impact that Sandro Tonali is making for Newcastle. Like, man, we talked about Holland, opening the scoring early. I think Tonali scored within the first 5 or 6 minutes too. I think he only scored once last year for Milan, and he scored within 5 minutes, 6 minutes for Newcastle. In the group chat yesterday, you were saying he's already looking like the signing of the season. Obviously, it's only one game, so don't want to get too ahead of ourselves or anything. But
Yeah.
man, did he look good?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, gonna he's not like a Gundogan or a De Bruyne where he's scoring a bunch every year. It was nice, obviously, to open up your debut in the Premier League with a goal. But yeah, signing of the season, just in the terms of like you have to think of who's like come into England, switch teams at least, like the McAllisters going from Brighton to Liverpool, but. All the signings in this window and Tonali, we knew obviously his class, but I don't think very many people would have had him at signing of the season, but with a start like that, hit the ground running. All eyes are on Newcastle. They were really impressive. Brighton kind of expected it. They played Luton. Yeah, Newcastle against an Aston Villa team that I'm really high on. I think I've had great signings, finished the season really strong last year under Unai Emery. Yeah, Newcastle. And to be fair, like you said, scoring that many goals. Last year, they were like pretty defensive, winning games like 1-0, kind of shutting it down. But to burst off, to have a start like that, Newcastle's going to be a good one to watch.
Yeah, just like you said, against Aston Villa, of all teams, think they're almost universally picked to be, top eight. Whether it's a Europa League game or a Conference League spot. It's a lot of people are really high on them outside of the main six, and then maybe Brighton, who we just talked about being dominant. Outside of them, though, a couple draws. Bournemouth and West Ham getting draws. Nothing too exciting there, but moving on to the Sunday set of games, we all got together, the three of us, you, me, and our buddy Morgan, who unfortunately could make this season premiere for us, but we were able to get together for that game, and Tottenham, they were looking strong to start, opening up the Ange Postecoglou era. Unfortunately for them, it did end in a 2-2 draw, getting the point away at Brentford. I say unfortunately, but it wasn't a terrible result for them. I think maybe the thing, if you're gonna look back and kick yourself for it as a Tottenham fan or Tottenham player, the Son penalty. After they went to VAR, I think Son was kind of just like, yeah, even I know I made the penalty. I think it's a strong start for them. Expectations aren't too high. Obviously, it's also the first game post Harry Kane, so I guess they just got to build from there.
Yeah, for sure. And even without Ivan Tooney, like Brentford are pushovers by any means. I mean, we saw like we'll get to it later, but guys like Mauricio Pochettino, granted he played Liverpool, first game of the year in the Prem, it's always going to be tough. And we were talking about it, we were watching it with Morgan. The Spurs team feels like they're free to go forward now. Like the midfield isn't just sitting there kind of deep, like hoping Son and Kane and Kulishevsky can like do it themselves. James Madison already making an impact. I
Yeah.
think he had both assists, right?
That's
And
right.
I think that is just like the Spurs way. Like they just line up really well because if you think of back when like the Kyle Walker was there, like that era of team, they had a really strong central attacking midfielder kind of operating and doing all the playmaking. And I think now the only thing they really have to focus on is getting Richarlison into the game. Like I felt like he touched the ball like 3 times. Granted, like he's not Harry Kane by any means, but he can score you some goals, take some pressure off. He can hold up the ball. We see it with the Brazil team all the time, making crazy plays, doing bicycle kicks in the World Cup or whatever.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, and I think they just had fight even when they went down. The pen was the second goal for Brentford
Yeah,
to
they
put
were
them
up
up.
1-0, and then they fell down 2-1. So to get that
Yeah,
second goal back and salvage a point, show some
yeah,
resolve.
you and like last year, you just didn't see that. The second they went down, they were just out, just completely lost it. And we last year they were second half Spurs, first half they'd go down 3-0 and then have to claw their way back. They're getting out ahead of teams, and it's going to be interesting to see how they grow kind of through the season. And if I'm a Spurs fan, and I think Morgan said it, like, yeah, you kind of wish you walked away with the win, but I think that's a really good start to the year for them.
I'd agree. Now moving on to the next game too, there's Liverpool and Chelsea. That was kind of like the Sunday showcase game, so to speak. It's probably going to be 2040 by the time that Liverpool and Chelsea break their straw of drawing games. It seems like I think this is 7 in a row. So Liverpool took the lead early. Yeah, there you go. You got the hat. We went to the bar and Liverpool bar, got to watch the game with a bunch of Liverpool fans, gave us some memorabilia, got some Carlsberg glasses to take home with us,
The
which was really
Steven
cool. Some
Gerrard
mugs.
era.
It literally getting those classic jerseys back. Saw some people with those classic jerseys. Great time. Had to go home and kind of analyze the game afterwards because of those small
Mhm.
screens and the delays with the different screens. Kind of didn't make for the most optimal viewing experience. But there was an offsides that called back a Mo Salah goal that would have put them up 2-0. And I think if that would have stood, then Liverpool probably would have walked away with a win, but it didn't stand. And after that point, Chelsea pretty much dominated the game. They were able to score a goal, and then they had another goal removed from VAR offside call, which as a Liverpool fan, we're kind of glad to see that one removed too, 1-for-1. But yeah, Chelsea pretty much dominated from there on. It was kind of like people were calling it the Caicedo Derby because of all the drama with Moises Caicedo with Liverpool, and Chelsea vied for his services. Ultimately, Chelsea coming away with them as well as Romeo Lavia, Liverpool's other target. So, as a Liverpool fan, the biggest takeaway to me is that big hole missing in the midfield defensively, number 6 spot. Liverpool was a little bit eager getting rid of Fabinho for that price tag was attractive, but there's this big hole now we have yet to see what they're going to do. They did pick up the Japanese midfielder Endo from German side.
Stuttgart.
Stuttgart, yeah, I'm not sure what their ranking is in the league without looking it up. We'll see how it works out for them. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I don't know what your thoughts on the game. I think we had a preliminary ranking, and neither of us had Chelsea too high on our ranking, but after some revisions and watching how they looked the first game, it looked like you were pretty high on Chelsea too.
Yeah, just in terms of Endo, by the way, Stuttgart produced Josh Kimmich, I'm pretty sure. So, granted, he's not Japanese or Josh Kimmich.
German.
Granted, he's not German, and he's what you said, 30 years
I
old.
think he's 30
Uh,
already, yeah.
who knows? Maybe you'll get some some Kimmich in that. But
Hopefully.
yeah, Chelsea looked really good. I mean, you should look really good when you spend $1 billion in transfers, but
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. But yeah, Liverpool is definitely missing that defensive midfielder. It seems like this late into the window, it's probably going to be someone just to hold you over and a rotation piece. I was kind of interested the way Liverpool played towards the end of the year when they kind of went on that run and were winning a bunch of games and felt like old Liverpool was back. Trent was stepping into that midfield. And then from what I remember watching the game, it didn't seem like he was doing that as much. And then like you'd think you'd be more willing to do that when you have a healthy Van Dijk, not a lot of miles on his leg yet. Obviously, first game of the season. Same with Konate back, Andy Robertson there. You'd think you'd definitely be more willing to have Trent. And again, especially with like Fabinho gone, but Klopp put out that really offensive attack. That solid goal probably should have been awarded, but I mean, it's a tough start. Liverpool at Stamford Bridge, two good teams, probably both going to be battling for a top four spot. So first game of the year, you expect kind of a slow start. So yeah, I think both teams played really well. Szoboszlai looked like a really, really good signing. I think McAllister's still trying to get his feet under him, but
He was kind of playing out of position too. He was kind of playing in that defensive midfielder role. So he didn't get to execute the full potential of his abilities, but he still was, like you said, kind of getting his feet wet.
yeah, and how did you feel about that front three that Klopp went with? Because it was Diaz, Salah, which kind of expected, but then
It was Jota up
Jota
front.
up top. Yeah, and then you have Gakpo kind of dropping in, Szoboszlai, and then McAllister are all kind of like cammy attacking
Hmm.
midfielders. So
It wasn't a terrible lineup. It was a pretty good lineup. I don't like Gakpo playing midfield. I don't know if that's like the new, like last year there was the whole like making a center back or a right back, making them a midfielder, like the whole John Stones, Trent, Zinchenko thing. Like I don't know if that's supposed to be the thing this year, is like taking a center forward and making them into a midfielder like Kai Havertz and Cody Gakpo. I don't know if that's the whole wave that's starting this year or not. I hope
yeah,
not, because I don't think it's looking too hot for Arsenal to start, and then I don't think it's looking too hot for Liverpool. If anything, I think like Jota had a better chance being a little bit more of a midfielder. The problem is their pressing is just like a little too aggressive almost, because you're used to playing, or you're used to pressing, I guess, in a different way when you're an up top player. Unless you're just gonna like fully dedicate them to converting into a new position, I don't think it's smart to be playing these attackers in the midfield, because they're kind of used to helping out more so than being the focal point of winning the ball back. Hopefully it's not a permanent thing. Hopefully it's just a temporary thing. I'm hoping that Klopp is kind of just putting these guys in this position as like a message to like the ownership, like, let me get some guys here, please.
yeah, no, I feel that. I mean, you guys are sitting on 110 mil. I mean, if I was like running a club, I'd probably this late sit on it and see what you can do in January. But that's a long, obviously, stretch of games. You don't know how, we'll see how bad you need a six coming up through the season. But I guess technically you got one, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Now, also, before the end of the weekend, there was that Monday night football, I guess, in England. The Manchester United and Wolves game. Manchester United walked away with a 1-0 win, but the game was littered with controversy. There was the Onana play where he, left his line, and there was a header attempt, and he striked the striker, and could have been probably should have been a shout for a pen there, but the referees, missed the call, and I think these referees have been removed from calling games this upcoming weekend. Adding to the drama of this
You
event.
hear that, La Liga? We'll get to that
See,
later.
yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
yeah, we'll definitely get to that later. What was I gonna say? Yeah, Wolves kind of dominated the game too. Like Wolves had like 23 total shots, and they had like more shots on target, shots on attempt. So yeah, it was not the greatest start for Manchester United. They're lucky to walk away with 3 points. One of my buddies who's a Manchester United fan was, talking shit about Liverpool only getting the draw at Stamford Bridge. But I'm like, dude, you guys barely beat Wolves. Like you shouldn't be really proud of that result. It's week 1, so you might have 3 points now, but we'll see in a few months.
Yeah, I watched that game, and Wolves obviously is in my relegation, like bottom three this year, and I still think they will be. But man, you're right. First half, like Wolves probably should have went ahead pretty easily. They were absolutely dominating. The wingers for Manchester United were awful. It was Anthony and who was out on
Garnacho,
the
right?
left? Yeah, Garnacho did absolutely nothing. I'm again really not sure what that Mason Mount signing was. They kind of just relied on Rashford to do something, but it's pretty easy to defend a single guy and not an entire team. But yeah, Cunha for Wolves, he had a couple where he dribbled through a couple defenders on a breakaway on a counter attack, looked really good. And Wolves as a whole just very unlucky. Honestly, Manchester United are lucky to walk away with 3 points, but they would have been lucky to walk away with a single point.
Yeah.
There were some chances that Wolves probably should have finished, and that game probably should have been like 3-1 ish Wolves. But yeah, Manchester United not the best start in the world. We'll see if it's going to be like last year. We said in the podcast at the end of last season, the biggest thing for United this year is to like be consistent. If it's going to be anything like last year, where it's going to be some waves for them, some massive highs and some big lows. So
Speaking of massive highs and massive lows, this team that we're about to talk about had some decent highs and some massive lows this week. Real Madrid suffered two really unfortunate injuries. Both Militao and Courtois suffered torn ACLs, so they'll probably both be out for the extended period of the season. It's usually like a 6 to 9 month injury, they say. So we'll see if they return. The high part for them, though, is Jude Bellingham scoring in his debut for Madrid, La Liga debut, and picked up 3 points in a 2-0 win. So yeah, they're looking pretty good in that sense, but unfortunate injuries there. Some of the memes making the round were that they were going to stick like Kamavinga, goalkeeper, as a replacement, but in reality, they picked up Kepa on loan from Chelsea. So serviceable, but definitely not on the level of Courtois.
yeah, obviously, like you said, those are two massive injuries. And the summer they had, the talent they brought in, it looked like they were world beaters, but two massive injuries, like they're back down. I mean, they still can compete, but they have some problems to solve. Obviously, no real center forward, so they played four in the midfield, and it was pretty interesting. I was wondering who was going to start opening day, and because obviously you have like the vets like Cruz and Modric, and then you have the new signings, and then the kids that have been there like Camavinga, Tchouaméni, and neither Cruz or Modric started. But yeah, they're going to be. I think I really don't know what to think of Real Madrid. Obviously, super stacked, super talented, but they have like massive holes now. You don't have your like star piece in defense and Militao. You don't have Courtois, and you don't have a central forward that those midfielders can kind of play off of, and those wingers can do what they do best and find that like the what Benzema would do with Vinicius doing his thing down the wing, and somehow would always find Benzema in the box. So I can't tell if they're kind of in trouble, kind of not. I think it depends on the matchups, and whenever they play the big teams, it'll be interesting to see how they play. But for now, we'll see. They still have a couple weeks, I think, until the window's over. It's the 16th. So yeah, like 14 days. We'll see if there's any panic buys or if they can get any business done. But again, towards the end of the window, teams like are kind of bunkering down, like don't really expect to lose players at this point. So
Yeah,
they're
usually
gonna
you've
have to
done your
either pay
business.
big money. Yeah, you're either gonna have to pay big money or not really getting players. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting.
You said kind of in trouble, kind of not. We're going to pivot to the other team that's kind of in trouble, kind of not. Barcelona. We watched that game on Sunday too. I kind of dozed off for a certain period of that game because it was kind of, and by kind of, I mean very boring. Getafe, the other team, very, very physical, fouling Barcelona 20 times, a lot of yellows, a red too, but they were able to successfully get in the head of Rafinha, who took a red, I think like 42 minutes in or something like that, pretty early in, making Barcelona play down a man. You made that joke earlier about the refereeing with the Manchester United game, but like that, like you said to Morgan, that the refereeing for this Barca game was probably some of the worst you've ever seen. I've seen some people online saying that too. It really was just like a sham of a refereeing job because you got guys from Getafe out here clotheslining and throwing bows and hip checking these guys in Barcelona. You got Lewandowski on the ground and writhing in pain, and Rafinha taking cheap shots at people because he's been roughed up so much. So it wasn't the greatest game from a refereeing standpoint, but Barcelona also didn't really bring the heat. They were looking pretty disappointing. Kind of makes you question what kind of chance they might have to compete for the league this year. But you also don't want to, get too far ahead because it's only one game. So trying to find the happy median and the evaluation there. But as a Barcelona fan, I guess we should just ask you what the expectation, the feeling is moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through the Setien, the Valverde, the Koeman eras, and I've never seen a game that bad. Yeah, I mean, part of it is the referee letting teams play physical, especially with the talent gap between Getafe and Barcelona, but it was just ridiculous. You'd be watching like the back line when Barcelona's in possession, and Lewandowski isn't even making a run. He's just kind of walking across that back line, and then he just dropped to the floor multiple times. Rafinha not really being protected. Yeah, it did get to his head. Like, he needs to be better. Pretty unacceptable, especially the way it went down, kind of making that running into Lewandowski. So that just shows like the coordination kind of going on with Barcelona right now. And throwing that elbow to the head, you're gonna like, that's a no doubt, no brainer. But Ilkay Gundogan on that Lewandowski run, just making a run through the middle and just gets an elbow right into the stomach. I mean, it was ridiculous. And again, going back to last year, I was like nonstop saying like La Liga is going downhill. It's really bad. It's just a mess. Tobias has no idea what he's doing, and I'm glad, honestly, to like have a game that bad with a team like Barcelona playing in it. Because if it was two teams like no one really cares about, in the grand scheme, obviously every team has
Mm-hmm.
their loyal fans, but like that national of a game, I think it was the last game of the day on Sunday for La Liga, so it's like their Sunday night kind of game
Yeah.
for everyone to watch, and got to see how, just in shambles as it was. But part of it too with that is there's like no incentive for like the Getafes to want to play Barcelona. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the Premier League does, but yeah, teams sit back and defend like the better teams, like if Liverpool is playing like a Bournemouth, but those games are still like exciting to watch. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the way Barcelona play, how slow it is. I do think we're kind of stuck in our ways, and we need to kind of evolve from that tiki taka, that possession, because a lot of it was just passing it around the back. But yeah, it was miserable. It was horrible to watch. I couldn't even believe that was Barcelona playing. But also part of it is kind of on us. I mean, yeah, you're being kicked or whatever, but there were so many times like we finally get a break. We're on a counterattack, which would be huge. Like, we can do some damage, and a player just rolling around on the ground 5 minutes after it happened. It's like, clearly you're not going to get the call in this
Yeah, you gotta
game.
get up.
And you have to get up. Come on. There was no creative like play out of anybody. I mean, Romeo, the new signing academy kid from Girona, was probably doing the most, and he was a deep playmaker, not Sergio Busquets. He's just there to distribute and defend. And then we really relied on a 16-year-old Lamine Yamal,
Yeah.
who was like one of the few that actually looked good. He created chances. A team of the stature of FC Barcelona relying on a 16-year-old is absolutely ridiculous. But I'm glad Rafinha got that red card, because I've never seen a Brazilian winger not be able to dribble past a single defender ever one-on-one. It's honestly ridiculous. Hopefully Lamine gets a start. Don't care if he's 16. He was the best creative player on the pitch. Lewandowski, there were stats from him pre-World Cup and post-World Cup, and like all of his attacking stats have like been cut in half.
Trying to show that
It
age a
is
little
like,
bit.
yeah, and they said all of a sudden it just hits you. Like Luis Suarez, like 1 week you're on fire, and then all of a sudden you're old and you never get it back. So hopefully we don't have that all of a sudden now. I saw a lot of Barcelona fans saying if Saudi came in with a ridiculous offer for Lewandowski, like we might have to do it.
Might
But
have
I
to.
mean, we're kind of in shambles. I said it was pretty unfortunate timing. It sounded like everyone in Barcelona finally accepted Neymar could come back, but Xavi is the only one that said no. And Neymar didn't want to play under Xavi either. Would I give up Neymar, or would I give up Xavi to have Neymar back? Probably not. But if Neymar would have accepted, like, I would have been the first one on the phone with him. The second after that game, Xavi too. Don't even talk to the players. We'll do that later. Just get Neymar Neymar on the phone. That's how bad that was. I mean,
It,
again, just no creative. I couldn't believe it was a Barcelona game, dude.
yeah, it looked like some Sunday league, some weekend rec league type shit, man, the way that they were
Yeah.
fouling. But speaking of Neymar, it's just crazy to think that he's in Saudi now. Like his career isn't going to be as memorable as we probably thought it would have been, 5, 6, 7 years ago when he was the, young prodigy of Europe
Hmm.
that was supposed to supplant Cristiano Ronaldo and Leo Messi, and now all three of them are outside of European football within the same calendar year, and it's just nuts to say.
Yeah, I was watching a video, like a little clip on Instagram, and someone was comparing Neymar at 23, his accomplishments, Holland at 23, and then Mbappe at like 24, 23, 24. And like Neymar like had a significantly better start. And that's crazy. Like considering what Holland and Mbappe have done, like Neymar was levels above. And that Michael Owen tweet back in 20, I don't remember, 17 when he left, about how the only direction from Barcelona is like downwards from here. Like you're not getting better. Like that's just proving more and more
Yeah,
true. But I mean, it's a shame. Like 31, you think of what Ronaldo and Messi were doing at 31. I
right.
mean, they were still like prime, just absolutely dominating the game, and he's
Ballon
off in
d'Ors.
Saudi Arabia. Yeah, exactly. And obviously, no other team would have taken the risk on him because I don't think Saudi was his first choice. I think he would have preferred to stay in Europe, but he's just such a mess. And then I saw a stat: he was at PSG for 6 or 7 years and only played 173 games because they were
Yeah.
saying after his tenure, yeah, they were like, look at this, it's an insane record, 173 games, however many goals, assists, and it's like
Wait,
he's
100
been
and
like
yeah. It's like been
yeah,
6 years, man.
that's like 2.5 years worth of for a regular player, and he's
Right.
doing it in 6 or 7 for PSG in a league he dominates. So like, yeah, it's a shame we never got to see, I think, the full potential of Neymar, which
Yeah.
really sucks to think about.
And I mean, even Al Hilal, like he was their third choice. Like they wanted Messi, then they wanted Mbappe, and then they went for,
Yeah,
and I'm sure his
yeah,
offer was lesser than the other two. Not that that's
yeah.
saying much. I'm sure the offer is still ridiculous.
Yeah, and just he's the most expensive like combined price tag player of all time, and you just think of that career, and it's like he accomplished a ton, he won a ton, but just not even close to the potential we saw he like could have had in his years in Barcelona, and it's sad to see.
100%. But this upcoming weekend we do have the return of Serie A. We got the return of Bundesliga, return of all these other leagues that we got going on too. So we're in full swing now. It's not just Premier League and La Liga. We got Champions League coming back soon, and for the Liverpool fans and some of these other clubs, Europa League. It's gonna be great. Back in full swing. So gonna try and do this every week now moving forward, now that we're in the full swing of things. Calling it season 2 of Starting 11 podcast. So yeah, having said all that, we'll enjoy this weekend of football, and we'll come back at you guys next week.